Digital Rights Exchange. Protect your digital footprint. Brings you Why Wait for Politicians? DIY copyright and licensing is here. If creators of content were to wait for politicians to create a globally standardized means for the copywriting, licensing, and distribution of creative works, most of us would probably be dead by the time it was enacted. That is why Zeeden Cloud Concepts went ahead and launched the world's first complete digital rights exchange, or DRE, for the registration, copywriting, licensing, tracking, and protection of creative works. It is now 2016. It was way back in 2011 that Nelly Kroes, Vice President of the European Commission, said Europe's audiovisual sector was handicapped by different approaches to copyright issues in EU member countries. It harms consumer interests and reduces choice, Kroes said in a speech at the World Copyright Summit. That summit took place in 2011, and there's still no solution. That is why Zeeden stepped in, to meet the needs of not just Europeans, but people across the globe. Kroes continued, "It prevents our audiovisual industry from realizing economies of scale and emerging as winners in a strongly competitive global internet environment. And it does not help in the fight against piracy either." The European Commission was to shortly announce draft proposals for the distribution of audiovisual works in a single digital market, using a new online copyright licensing system. But that still hasn't happened, even though it was apparent that the creation of a European framework for online copyright licensing would greatly stimulate the legal offer to protected cultural goods and services across the EU. The compilation and availability of accurate information on music authors' rights ownership information in one authoritative database is key to facilitating efficient cross-border licensing and distribution of royalties to the relevant right holders in a consistent manner across Europe, and will also facilitate licensing of European repertoire abroad and corresponding distribution of royalties back to their European authors. Kroes said that the Commission is creating a framework so that audiovisual material can be digitally downloaded by potential users legally, and that the Commission will also propose new laws that will simplify how artists manage their rights across Europe. Of course, it is now 2016, and it still has not happened. They also promised, "We will also launch a debate on the opportunities and challenges of online distribution of audiovisual works," Kroes said in her speech, "and we will make sure that the copyright enforcement regime is adapted to the digital era. Our real challenge is dealing with the present while leaving the door open to legal innovative distribution channels and attractive consumer experiences. And new technology can help here, if we put it at the service of the artists." This is exactly what Zeeden has done. In fact, its platform goes a bit farther, and goes beyond just Europe. The issue of varying laws is not unique to European countries. It applies globally. But it is a good example. Existing European laws consider copyright infringement and enforcement differently. In the UK, the Copyright, Designs, and Patents Act allows fair dealing of copyright works in non-commercial research, in reviews and criticisms, and as part of news reports, without being deemed to infringe the rights of copyright owners. The Act also permits copyright works to be used incidentally as part of sound recordings, films, and artistic works. Dutch copyright laws are more liberal and permit a more extensive use of copyright works. French copyright laws give authors the sole right to decide when to make their work available for public use. For a centralized European copyright licensing system to work, existing copyright laws have to be standardized according to one legal expert. Without significant harmonization of laws in advance, it is unclear how any exchange would work, said Leon Connor, an IP law expert at Pinsent Mansions, the law firm behind Outlaw. Connor said that a single portal for obtaining the rights to use copyright works is a good idea in theory, but would take a long time to establish. That might be true, but now we have one. It simply took a non-governmental entity, Zeeden Cloud Concepts, to get it done. The idea of having a central repository is good because it would be easier for people to conduct business, Connor said. But the reality is it would take a long time to get up to speed, and the practical difficulties and cost of such a database would be huge. In reality, the cost is less than having done nothing, and the revenue created by legal licensing more than covers the overhead. An organization would need to manage the system in a similar way to how Google operates its Books Library project, Connor said. Google works with publishers to digitally archive literature and allow users to search for snippets of content to see if the publication has the information they are looking for. A European copyright license system would be on a bigger scale than Google's Books program, be costly, and would be very complex, Connor said. Say a work is listed in this exchange. Doesn't mean, therefore, that you have to license it. Would it lead to compulsory licensing? Could artists say no? Connor said. If a copyright work is not in the exchange, does it mean people can use the work for free, and does it mean they would have a good defense to any lawsuit artists may take out about its use? Zeeden's DRE addresses these issues. Works are required to be licensed. The artist can choose what type of license they want to make available, compulsory, fair use, etc. And just because something is not on the DRE does not mean the author's rights are not protected. It does mean it would be easier for them to make a claim and win having the registered copyright placed in the DRE. There are a host of issues around the effect of listing a work in such a copyright exchange. And there are a host of issues to do with works not included, either voluntarily or through ignorance, in the exchange, and what happens in either of these circumstances. Connor said, the Commission would have to put out detailed proposals of the costs and benefits of joining a copyright license exchange and outline circumstances where copyright owners would be free to license their own works without interference from Europe, forcing them to include their works in such a copyright exchange, Connor continued. The last issues raised by Connor are really not issues at all. Zeeden does not cost anything to join. Registering a work is approximately 2 cents, so there are no downsides to using the DRE. Using the rules set up for exchange and licensing, and the ability for publishers to add their own restrictions to the license, there is no need for interference by European officials or officials of any government for that matter. For those who don't choose to register their content, nobody need force them, although it certainly makes more sense than the old mail yourself a copy method. We the people needed a copyright system which boosts our creative capacities and rewards them instead of holding them back. We needed a copyright system fit for the digital era, and that is why the Zeeden DRE was built. It didn't happen overnight. Years ago, the project was begun because it was obvious that the presence of an entity that would facilitate the exchange of digital rights to combat piracy and security issues would become a necessity in the emerging digital age. Years of research and design resulted in the formation of Zeeden Incorporated and the first digital rights exchange in the cloud. Zeeden is now programmed for deployment, and this presents several opportunities for both businesses and individuals. You can visit them at www.zeeden.us. Digital Rights Exchange. Protect your digital footprint. This has been Why Wait for Politicians? DIY copyright and licensing is here.